Summer's almost over. With that, I will call this meeting to order. Would you stand with us for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Council. And so with that, we'll sign in, please. Ms. Hawley?
Okay. All councilors present and a quorum has been declared, with Councilor Coleman previously requesting to be excused.
Thank you. We will now move on to our agenda approval. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Ms. Hawley? Ms. Heather?
Mayor, I do believe from speaking with Councilor Hensley that there has not been all of the materials turned in for 2 of the executive sessions for the evaluations. So I think the recommendation is that we just move them to the next meeting and not have those 2 executive sessions at tonight's meeting.
Thank you. So with that, I'll entertain Councilor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve the agenda, excusing Mr. Coleman from the meeting, as well as kicking back our executive sessions, the evaluations of the city manager and city attorney, to the next meeting.
Second it.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, start voting, please. Missing one. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll move on to citizen comment. Alamosa City Council welcomes your comments. Citizens wishing to speak may obtain and complete a speaker card through the City Clerk at the start of the meeting. I've got 2 cards. Are there any other cards out in the audience? Start out with Mr. Scott Wilson. Thank you for being here, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you for having me. So my name's Scott Wilson. I'm actually the program director for the single family housing for USDA Rural Development. I just wanted to share a couple things on behalf of CRHDC, who will have a public works matter that's going to be voted on tonight, I believe. So CRHDC is one of our state grantees. We have 3 other across the state of Colorado, and I travel the state quite a bit. I was just in a meeting today in Salida, in fact, where we had Chaffee County, Custer County, Lake County, Teller County there, and they're all talking about how do we solve the affordable housing issues across our state. So the affordable housing report in 2014 that the state had prepared said that we were 44,000 deficient units across the state of Colorado. And having been a land developer and builder, only being in the federal government for 2 years now, most of the builders that survived that 2008 recession are back building, but they're not building affordable housing. So that number of 44,000 is probably closer to 50 or higher at this stage in the game. Everywhere I go, I travel all across the state. So Cortez, Los Animas, La Junta, Yuma, Fort Morgan. The big subject is how are we going to solve our housing crisis? And so one of the programs that we have that USD offers is the self-help program, where people through the 502 direct loan program actually qualify for a loan, and then they build a house. And that's the program CRHDC has employed over, I think, 41 years now in our state. So the self-help program as a whole nationally has been around 50 years. We've helped over 50,000 families across the nation get into housing. And CRHDC leads our state with that program, and I think they've done over 1,800 homes. So you divide 50,000 by 50 states, that means all those states should have done 1,000 houses in the self-help program, and we've done 1,800, but that's not even scratching the surface of our problem. So I just wanted to share with you that CRHDC is an awesome grantee. They do a great job for USDA in that program. They are meeting a need, not humongously, because they only build like 6 to 7 houses in a build group, so in a year maybe we get 12 to 14 houses built. But still, that's helping 12 to 14 more families be able to get into a home. So I just wanted to share that a lot of communities across the state are very, very envious of having a relationship with an organization like CRHDC. And when that matter comes up later on tonight, I hope that you'll vote favorably for it. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Appreciate your presence. Mr. Dan McCann. Welcome, Mr. Dan.
Thank you for having me. Dan McCann, 829 Sunset Drive, Alamosa, Colorado. I'm announcing my candidacy for running for Alamosa mayor in the upcoming November election. If elected, I will have some teeth implants installed, but I want you people to understand something. I'm pragmatic. The reason I haven't is so I'm training a boxer and he slips a punch, implants will go out like sucking on some candy, anything. They'll be knocked out. But if I'm elected, I will do that because I don't want people to think Alamosa and the San Luis Valley is Appalachia. I'll do the best I can. Now, I have a great relationship with all the Alamosa County elected officials. I have a great relationship with all the Alamosa school board members, and I really do believe I have a great relationship with the Alamosa City Council and staff. By the way, Mayor Joe Lucero and Ty Coleman and I are friends.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. We have a special guest this evening, Representative Donald Valdez. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. Thank you, Council Administration. First off, I want to say thank you to the citizens of Alamosa County, and I continue to work hard and will. This year at the House was an amazing 4.5 months, and I will continue to work hard. I passed 6 legislation bills, and I come back to the Valley and I see a lot that needs to be continued. A lot of hard work, a lot of issues, our infrastructure, our roads and bridges, continue to fight for education, continuing economic development in all our communities. But one of the biggest things that I see right now is the drug use, the opioid epidemic that's happening in our communities and that's taking almost 2 generations. And it's an issue that I will continue to fight for and voice and educate our youth about. So I just want to thank you for your hard work and continuing. I'm available for any meeting or just why? Because we need to present at the state level, and I'm willing to do that. I thank you for your time. Please get a hold of me if there's any consideration or issue that is upon you, and we must move forward from there. Thank you.
Councilor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Valdez, just thank you for being here and giving us an update with what's going on at the legislature. And I hope we can continue to be great partners to work on issues like the drugs. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much for being here. We certainly appreciate your presence and thank you for the update. Please make yourself a regular here at our city council meetings. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you very much. All right, we will now move on to consent calendar A. The consent calendar allows multiple actions with one motion. Consent calendar A contains routine items which have been recommended for action by staff or advisory boards. Council may remove a consent calendar item for separate consideration. Tonight we have 5 items. the approval of the minutes of the meeting of July 5, 2017, receive the May 2017 monthly reports, receive the June 2017 monthly reports, award of bid for the 2017 sewer main replacement project, and a motion to approve the creation of a Blanca Vista Dog Park. Councilor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve consent calendar A.
I second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on consent calendar A?
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Councilor Vihil. Councilor Grego, I'm sorry.
Thank you. On C4A, I just had a couple comments there on the motion to approve the creation of a Blanca Vista Dog Park. I spoke to the city manager. When that happens, right now, as you come down from the golf course, the speed limit right now is about 40. And she's going to look into it to see if maybe we could maybe lower that down, because I've had a lot of calls, because a lot of people jog and walk in that area. And when they come around that bend, and legally, I guess it is still 40, so I think Pat's going to look into it, or somebody's going to look into it, maybe see if we could maybe lower that.
So there's a few criteria we're going to apply. We've started those discussions. We currently had the tubes placed at a different location because of some complaints we were receiving from that neighborhood, but we're going to probably move them there next week to take a look at some of the criteria as far as what the average speed is and look at it from that perspective, but then also from a safety perspective,
Sure.
if we've increased the number of pedestrians and those types of things as well. So we've got both police and public works taking a look at different criteria that could be applied to that. It is within our control, so to answer that question as well.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Manager.
Councilor Vihil.
Yeah, also a comment on C4A, just a thank you to Hines and Andy and Heather for getting the city a second dog park. I know 4 years ago when we had discussions about this, the number one amenity that people wanted was a water feature for dogs, and we finally were able to get that. So kudos to you guys for getting that done, and I'm happy it's going to be done by September, and it's only going to cost us $300 a year to maintain it.
Thank you, Councilor Vihil. I've got a motion and a second on consent calendar A. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll move on to regular business. We have two presentations this evening. The first one is Reinaldo Garcia, IT Matters, Colorado. Welcome, Mr. Garcia. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors, staff. How is that? Audio good? And community members. Thank you for your time and opportunity. I'm Dr. Reinaldo Garcia. I'm a clinical and research psychologist. I'm employed by the University of Colorado. I'm a member of a project that is focused on training physicians, nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, and clinic staff on the medication-assisted treatment of opioid addiction. And thank you, Representative Valdez, for recognizing the epidemic level that this problem has reached. I'm sure that you're familiar with the epidemic height in the United States, in Colorado, the San Luis Valley, and certainly Alamosa County. The training that we're doing and the capacity building that we're doing is unique in the United States. We don't know of anything else like it. The capacity building is that it provides for treatment through primary care practices, through our regular primary care practice providers, which is really quite unique because ordinarily this kind of treatment has to go through an authorized treatment center. So this makes treatment a whole lot more available to potentially a lot more people. But the main reason that I'm here tonight is because a whole nother important part of it is community education about this problem and treatment options. And we'd like to start out by understanding what communities already know about the problem and treatment. And that's to precede an educational campaign, if you will, and then to follow with a similar survey, because both the training and the education that we're doing, we're also going to be evaluating to determine whether it's helpful, useful, beneficial. So my specific request of the council and community here tonight is to participate in this survey. It takes about 5 minutes to complete. You don't have to do it here tonight. It's completely voluntary, answers confidential. You don't have to answer any question you don't want to answer. All of the findings are going to be reported in summary form. There will be no link back to you individually. You will not be paid. It won't cost you anything to participate other than about 5 minutes of your time. And a postage-paid envelope is provided for you to mail the completed survey and for your convenience. The reason that I'm asking you to approve this is because, and whether you do or not, at least I want you to know why. The more difficult, we want good participation. And so the more inconvenient that we make it for people to participate, of course, the lower the response rate. And we'd like to hear from Alamosa. This part of the sampling is not randomly selected. We're not going to randomly select from you or community members. It's called a sample of convenience. The venues are randomly selected. Alamosa was randomly selected. So it's an attempt to make participation relatively convenient. So specifically, my question is whether I may leave blank copies of the survey with the postage-paid envelope for yourselves, for any member of the community who would like to complete it and return it to us.
Yes, you can leave it here with the city clerk.
That would be wonderful. I want to add one piece of information. There are this is color-coded. So the salmon-colored, and I have a note here for you, salmon-colored goes to council members and council support staff. The really bright green ones are for community members. And then if you wouldn't mind holding on, if there are any extras, and I will pick them up tomorrow. Does that
Thank you,
sound,
Mr. Garcia.
do we have a
We
plan?
can do that, absolutely. You can hand those to our city clerk. We'll be more than happy to oblige you. Councilor Daniels.
Do you have any questions?
I do, Dr. Garcia.
Okay.
Of course I do.
All right, I thought so.
Yes, this is, as you know, pretty near and dear to my heart, so I appreciate
Absolutely.
the work that you're doing. My question is, so with more physicians, first of all, how broad of a base is the It Matters project? Is it for the valley or for the entire state as your job?
It's the San Luis Valley and most of eastern Colorado.
Okay. Cool.
And let's see, I think at least council has a one-page or two-page handout that shows the part of Colorado that's included. So not western, not northern, and not central, but San Luis Valley and eastern Colorado.
Thank you very much for that. And the second question is, so with the medication-assisted treatment happening in physicians' offices, are they also doing the counseling pieces of the addiction treatment in those offices, or will they be done outside of that?
It can be done either way, depending on the relationship that the primary care practice, the provider organization has with other services, for instance, behavioral health. So if they have behavioral health on-site, at least co-located, if not integrated, then it can be provided there, because they will be included in our training as well. So it's not only the medical staff, but also we can include allied staff. We did a training in Hugo, Colorado. I'd never been to Hugo, Colorado. I was there yesterday. And we had all of their medical staff, support staff, and some of their support staff, and including billing people, that's important, and behavioral health, physical therapy.
And speaking of billing people, is it covered by the grant funding, or will people be using their own insurance for these services? Or how will that work? I know Medicaid covers some, so how will the payment for these services work, or the payment for the doctors to get the training as well?
The training we're providing.
For free?
Yeah, we're funding that. 2 platforms, an in-person, on-site. So, for instance, I will provide some of that training, and then the other is an online approach to training. At this point, we have no reason to, we have no research that supports that one platform, one training approach is any better than the other. So that's what it will also be learning. On the payment piece, I'm going to have to get back to you on that. But that's why we want the billing people particularly also involved, is so that they know what we're doing. They're part of the team, and know we'll have trainers who are schooled in that part of the effort.
Cool.
Yeah.
And the training that they're getting in the MAT, it includes Suboxone and methadone?
Suboxone.
Just Suboxone?
Yeah, very, very specific to the synthetic opioids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I think those are all the questions I have, but thank you very much, Dr. Garcia.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Daniel. Councilor Hensley?
I'm also very excited about this, so thank you very much.
Good to hear that.
So she asked a lot of the questions I had, but I do still have a couple more. Is this something that's going to start fairly soon, or is it still a process?
We've already begun.
Yay,
Yes.
that's exciting.
And we have, we've actually started training some of the Valley physicians. We are waiting to get final agreements from some of the provider organizations, their individual clinics, so that we can start the general staff training.
And so with that being said, so you said it is starting, so in the sense people can already call certain physicians and do this, or is it?
Their training is not finished.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it is all, and there is a date plan, sort of that idea.
We've already, I think we've had 3 Valley providers, clinicians attend the first training that was in, I can't remember if it was May or June. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a goal date of starting, or not yet?
I think with that's going to be ultimately up to the provider organization.
And then I guess
because they'll build the capacity, integrate it into their protocols, and decide on a.
I just think it's going to be awesome, because definitely I know that's been a challenge, because I think we have like one physician, if that can do this, and that's made it obviously very tough for her as well as for the people trying to get help.
That's right.
The other thing is, are you getting good reception in the sense of the providers wanting to be part of this?
Yes, but
Or is that a
you
loaded
can
question?
understand there's a lot. They have a lot of questions, and I think sometimes it's really easy to approach this as sort of a panacea, which it's not. We really want to make sure that providers, community, practices have a very realistic understanding of what it is and what it means to obtain this training and to go into practice. So it's a big it's a huge commitment.
Yeah.
It's a massive commitment, in fact. Yeah.
Well, thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hensley. Councilor Stefano?
Mr. Garcia, I also am pretty excited about this. We do have a lot of addiction here in the Valley.
That's right.
And I'm looking forward to seeing more exposure on this. Are you going to be involved with the methadone clinic or anything like that here?
As I think in collaboration, perhaps as a referral source, as a partner, as a treatment partner. But this particular project is very, very specific to the heroin is more of a natural opioid. It's an opiate, and the opioids are the ones that are pharmaceutically, chemically synthesized, your Percocet, your Vicodin, fentanyl, oxycodone, OxyContin. So this is very specific to addiction to those kinds of medications and not to heroin. But there's certainly a growing relationship between the use of heroin, the use of opioids, addiction to opioids, and then transitioning to heroin addiction. So we have to work together. Yeah.
That sounds
Yeah, I don't
great.
think we can't box ourselves apart from one another.
Sounds great. I'd like to get involved somehow.
Well, I'm going to put you on the list.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Stefano. Councilor Daniel?
Thank you, I'm sorry. I lied, Dr. Garcia, I have one more question. I'm so sorry. Can you tell us?
I have an opening in my schedule.
Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate that. Can you let us know where the funding for this project came from?
It's the Agency for Health Research and Quality. It's organization that, really is, whose mission has to do with improving practice, equity of practice, and consumer use of new practices. This is very, very focused on transitioning from research to practice and equity issues. Yeah. We were one of 3 or 4 states in the United States who got this grant. Yeah. And part of what they liked was the collaboration with community, the partnership that we have with the community.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia, and please, as the program progresses, keep us apprised of any results. Come back and visit with us and let us know how it's going.
Happy to come back, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Because so
sir.
often you just hear from us in the beginning, but not, as we move forward
as we go along.
and have findings to disseminate.
This
We'll do that.
This is a serious problem
It is.
about every community in Colorado is facing, and just knowing that you're out there, working to, in a sense, stop that, really puts your mind at ease. But please let us know how it's going for us.
We will do that. Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much for your time, your opportunity, your support, your participation, your questions.
Thank you, sir. And if you'll give those to our city clerk,
I'll do that.
take care of them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Dorothy Brandt with a museum update report. Mrs. Brandt, welcome.
I brought a helper with me tonight. I'm not supposed to drive at night.
Dorothy, it's nice to see you. We haven't seen you in a while.
I try to stay out of your way sometimes.
Thank you for being here.
Once you show me the trail, I just keep following and coming back. I want to make sure, is this okay over here?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me this evening, and I really appreciate it. It's one of the most difficult visits I've ever made since I've been here, but it's nice in a way, but just because it's time, and I'm here for good reasons, and to say thank you to everybody who has worked with us over these long years, and just because there's a difference of opinion about how the money from the marketing board is to be spent, I wanted you to hear it from me, and we've been fighting for this for a very long time, and so it's hard to know, and I have 10 minutes, and so I've tried to think so I could put it down and get the past out of the way, but this is not criticizing anybody, folks. It's kind of like what's happening in our country now. Things are mixed up. It's the system. It's not individuals. We're not attacking individuals. And today, I was almost going to bring all my books, but this is 1/4 of a book. I've got about 4 big black books, and everything we've ever done is in those books. And I was going to load them up and bring them and say that I have show and tell, and that would really scare you. But anyway, I'm not going to take time on this, but this is how it is. And every good, bad, and ugly is in these books. And I'm going to have these at the museum and have them on display so that we can get together at different times and do this. And in this envelope here, I have pulled out and made a copy of 4 pages that I think you will enjoy. And I'm going to turn these over to you when I go down here. And so I think they will be valuable. They've come from these different books. And the one thing is, it shows how we come together. And on the first page, I'll point this out. I want you to really read this, and I want you to reread it. This was at a meeting where a young couple at that time, they're older now, and I don't think they're in the audience, but they're older now, much older. But they were new here at that time. And when this came up, this one article, it tells you everything. It says, I'm new here, but I just walked in and I don't get this. This was about what was going on. And they said, we don't get it. That's not, but it's right there. So read it a couple times. And I've been dealing with this now for about 15, 16 years. And I'm getting tired, okay? So anyway, these folders I'm going to leave with you, and I hope that you will enjoy them, and I hope that you'll let me know later if you have any questions. I don't want to take your time at a meeting like this, but if you have questions, I'll be glad to do this. But it's really important. And then the other thing is, that have you had received this book? It's a book I put together for the museum. Have any of you seen it? All right, I'm going to have one on your desk tomorrow morning, because the historian came to me one day and said, Dorothy, we were going to do a copy of something for the museum, and we're going to ask you, however, we've had a cancellation. And they said, can you put together the history of the Alamosa Museum? And since it's been canceled out, you can have the whole book for the museum. Of course, I said, yes, of course I'll do that. I got home, I thought, what did you say? What did you do? This is 20 years, folks, and there's no way I can call on people to help me. I just got 10 days and everything. And so we did put it together, and we're very, very proud. And so it could have been done better. It's not great literature. Anything I touch is not great literature. It sounds like me talking. But you're even in here. Many of you are in here. And so I want you to have a copy of this, and I want you all to keep it on your desk, because and show it to people when they come in. There's still people in Alamosa that don't know we have a museum. They say, I never knew this was here. We get the greatest compliments internationally. We've been working on programs today now. We've just gotten we're working with the Pikes Trail. And you know, I'm not selling this. I don't know the ins and outs of it. But if a trail is coming from the East Coast to the West Coast, don't you think we ought to be in on it? I do. I think that's just another nice thing that we can do. So all of these good things, but from the very beginning now, we are the smartest people in town. And the reason being, our board knows what we don't know. We never touch anything that we don't know that might do damage, that might hurt. we have advisors, and they're wonderful advisors. We have an attorney advising us from the very beginning. We have accountants advising us from the very beginning. And so our books are in order. Everything's in order. And so you could be very proud of this, and you're not going to receive any surprises. They might say, somebody might say, one of the people on the other board said, well, it's not a very good situation because the only thing they do, they a quality of life program, but they don't bring in any money. Well, that's probably the greatest thing that we'll receive. The other thing is, I'm just going to jump real fast now so that I don't get out of my 10 minutes. Mary Hoffman from Community Partnerships got us that the wall over there. We worked with Adams State College at the time. We worked with everybody. The president of the college worked with me. He even came and used the museum, so when he had a new program, he would start that program there and let them finish at Adams State. Everybody has worked long and hard with us. And the people from Blanca, the little artist out there, that she designed, my husband drew this on a napkin, and she designed our tree here. But it seemed some hard times, very hard times. So now she volunteered to do us a new tree. And if you'll notice as you walk by, it's coming up over the door. And we're going to take the other and put it down for a while, and we're going to keep it for the museum for the future. We're going to keep it, but it doesn't go with the new tree. So I wanted you to know that's what we're doing. And they're doing all of that as a donation. And when you start looking at these things, Charlie, I want to thank you. When I first got into this, I chased Charlie all over town. He was wishing I'd leave for good. I said, Charlie, you got a minute for me? I'm not getting my money. You got to help me. And Charlie would say, Dorothy, I'll help you the best I can, but you know, I'm city and this county and, you know, and everything. But now I want to throw in a compliment to the county. Darius Allen worked long and hard. That building that you see here now, he called me up and he said, Dorothy, do you think you could make a museum out of that building? And I said, we sure take a look at it. And he said, would you and John come down? So we went down and we studied that building. It was really solid walls. And we thought, well, you know, it is so old and pigeon droppings and everything. But you know, we might just get a grant on that. We get a vision. If you got something old worth saving, and we tried hard, but the other group was interested in other things, nothing against them. And we've been working on this. We had every place in town, I think. We've had about 15 places to go and to do, and then we were donated that over there. And Ralph Alcott called me up and said, Dorothy, it's probably not big enough, but if it's big enough, you can have it. You can have it to build the museum. And he said, I'll even have it appraised. It was appraised at $185,000. And I'll give you the deed on it, and it's yours for the museum. It's for the museum, for the community, not me, not me. Okay, so this is a story of this museum. It's so fascinating. I think now what I'd like to see is almost become literature, but that's not my bag. So I'm thinking of getting an intern over there in the college that starts working for a few years and do the history book on the creation of this museum. I think it might work. Now, I still only get a little bit of money. I don't have a director, so we just do it. We just stepped up and we do it, all of us together. And it's just wonder how everybody works. And sometimes we wanted to stop, and then we said, okay, if we do, we'll all resign at one time and just put it on hold. We won't go one by one. And those little gray-haired ladies, have you ever seen what they can do? I mean, they raised all of you, you know? I mean, we know what we're doing, so why don't you give us a break sometime and say, now, when you're reading this, and Charlie said one day in here, I asked you for $6,000 out of order. I asked for it because I was desperate. We really needed, we had raised enough money for that new room. but we don't make bills for somebody else to pay after us. Everything you see in that museum is paid for. Everything is done. But we couldn't miss out on the springtime, because if we did, we would lose a year. We can't afford to lose a year, you know? And I contacted the people that gave us the money for the garden, and I said, but my garden is a mud hole. Would you let me use that $5,000 and do a patio? And they even invited me to Denver afterward to tell everybody what we did. And they were very proud that we did that. And that's the only brick thing they ever did, you know? They usually raise flowers. Well, we're doing the best because you gave us some old buildings, some old boxes, you know, and we got them blooming. Oh, I could just go on and on and on and on. And I don't want to do that, but I just want you to appreciate this. I want you to read it. I want you to stop by and call me at home. Call me, because we're not giving up, and we're going to do this gracefully. And you were so nice when I asked you for $6,000. I thought you weren't going to give it to me. In here, it'll tell you how long it worked. Charlie even said, he felt sorry for me, I think. He said, you know, couldn't we give Dorothy some of our leftover plants that we're not using? You know, maybe she should do that, and then she wouldn't have to spend all that money on plants, and maybe she could finish that. But you did step in, you did it, and it was an investment I don't think you should ever be ashamed of. You stepped just a little over the line, but we thank you for it. And so if you have any question for me, I would be glad to answer it. But just the last thing I tell you there, we are going to keep going the way we have, because we are successful. We have gone from $200 cash flow living in your little pump house out here and to over $1 million, but we don't have much money. But now when the people that gave us the money to finish off the fence found out that John had passed away, they sent $10,000 immediately in his honor. They're not rich, they're just people. They're graduates of Adams State. That money will keep us from ever being broke. It's at our hands. We could spend it any time. We're allowed to. We could do it tomorrow, but we never will. That will keep us from going, you know. But we must have Charlotte Bobisky and Frank Mestis, who are still around and on the back. They wrote up that operating plan, folks, and here is what it says. It says the 90% of that money, this is 2005, 90% of that money will be spent for the operation and maintenance and development and marketing of the San Luis Valley Museum, the Visitor Bureau, combined with the Convention Bureau. Now, it's in black and white. It's as clear as it can be. I'm no lawyer, but this is what I'm fighting for. So I will keep fighting for this, but I will never do harm, because it's not worth it. This is all of our community. That museum belongs to everybody, but the vote is sacred, in my opinion. And I'm a soldier, and I served for 3.5 years, and I cannot let that vote go without continuing to talk about it. So it's not against individuals, it's saying. So I came to see you first because this is your meeting and you have helped us so well over the years. I hope we haven't abused that privilege. The next meeting, we will say the same thing to the commissioners, and we will tell them thank you and everything, because they have all worked with us. But those are good people, and it's a system somehow that has gotten wrinkled up. And then we've turned in our budget. We'll see what happens. And then in August, we will go to see them and talk it over with the marketing board. We are here to work with everyone in this. And so you see what happens when they leave you alone for a while? Boy, you get a crowd.
Well, Dorothy, we don't want to leave you alone, but we've got some questions over here, and if you'll indulge us, Councilor Hensley, I'm sure would like to ask you something.
Well, first of all, I think you've done a great job with the museum. And I actually know that our MBA program was the program that actually went to the museum, that did their beginning. When we started our MBA, we came and used the museum, and you did a fantastic job. I am the director of the Adams State MBA, so I actually, you probably don't remember that I was the one that was able to share the museum with all of our students when we used to do orientations here in Alamosa, and it was fantastic. So I want to thank you for that, and I know a lot of our students, I think if I remember, I was going to say, she was one of our first students in the program, but it was fantastic, and it is something that I know from the quality of life, which a lot of times you can't put a dollar figure. You can't always say everything is worth something in a dollar perspective. We would really, as a community, be in really terrible shape, and it would be very detrimental to us if we ever lost that museum. So I want you to know how much I appreciate it, and I'm glad, and I appreciate the way you're fighting for it, but you're fighting with it with grace, you're fighting with dignity, with class. I think that's awesome as well. So I'm also the liaison for the marketing board for the City Council. And so I was at the last meeting, and so I do know the budget was presented. I was shocked at what a small budget the museum has. It is a very small budget. I do know there was discussion in regards to the amount you were asking for. I think a couple of questions were going to be asked of you, and I don't know if they were, but I will report, because it's definitely an open meeting, I do believe that they were still discussing it. And so when I go to the next meeting, I will definitely mention how you came here, and then I will tell you right now, I will definitely promote and with the fact that to support and help out the museum.
Well, I thank you for those kind words, because it means a lot down at Will to our troops, because as I say, it's been a long road, and we don't doubt for a moment that we made mistakes. You know, this is a great pride we have of this, that it's the grassroots. And this is one thing I told them, and I'm honored again. This is my third time now. They've even invited me back every year after writing them that 30-second poem. Remember that one? But they made a mistake there, and I told them. But the entire crowd stood up, 800 people, and cheered, and they stood in line. They stood in line, and it was just wonderful, and it was just grassroots, simple things that I said, you know, and I don't know, you might be willing to just hear it for a minute. What they did, they sent last instructions, and you know how these papers roll off of the emails, and you don't read half of them, you know that, and I do too.
Dorothy,
and I got down to the
I think
middle.
Councilor Grego wants to ask you something.
Huh?
I think Councilor Grego wants to make a statement here as
okay.
well.
I'm sorry.
I don't mean to cut you off either, Dorothy. I don't have a question, just a couple of comments. I want to thank you for all the hard work you have done throughout the whole years of putting the museum. You and John have worked countless hours on trying to make this happen and bringing together people, bringing together the college and everybody, and what you've done, what you continue to do. And I hope that the marketing board and the commissioners listen to you, because what you have there, it is a quality of life, and it does bring people here. It is economic development. You know, people come, they want to know what's the valley about? What's Alamosa about? This is just a small part of it. And I think if there was a way to market it better and put bigger signs, or I don't know what it takes to stop people better, people would enjoy what you have made there. And all the time that you've spent there, and you continue to do that, now without even a director, I don't see how you do it. But I just, out of my own heart, I want to thank you and what John did, you know. And thank you very much.
Believe me, I'll take all these kind words back to, and I'm going to call a special meeting to talk to them, and not even wait to it, and tell them what a nice reception I got, because everybody's worried about it, and because when we go and it seems like we keep complaining, and finally they told me one time, don't come back till you have something new. And I said, how can I get something new when I don't have the old? You know, I can't do that. I got to have money to run this, and I would never I would never start trying to make it bigger, and all of a sudden we have something over on the corner there, and we have to close it down. No, no, no. This never entered into it, closing that museum down. It may stay small. It may stay smaller than we like, if economically, you know. And we've never had a big fundraiser because the economy has been bad. And when we go out to ask the business people and they tell us they don't have money, we know they don't have money, you know, and everybody needs money. So, you know, our government's important. And I just want to spread the word about the government. I want to spread the word about the good things. And I'm certainly not down on the marketing board as such. It's on the issue of what the vote said. And if anybody disagrees with me about this vote, I want them to prove to me that I'm wrong, if I am wrong. But I don't think you'll find that. It's in black and white, and the people are still alive.
Absolutely. Dorothy, we appreciate your presence, and I think we've all heard what you've had to say, and we support you. I think it's one of those things at this point in time where, you know, the marketing district is going to have to listen to you in one form or another. And so we appreciate that. We'll have to discuss it amongst ourselves, and maybe we can offer a letter of support or something like that. But at this point in time, you know, we appreciate and honor everything that you do for the museum and for our community. And so,
Okay. Thank you so much. Would you let me end this with telling them what I did to you, Mr. Mayor?
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay,
Dorothy, I don't want to cut you off or anything, but
I know.
Can we make it brief?
I asked you if I could.
Yes, ma'am. You go right ahead, please.
Okay, I say it real fast, folks. I was really troubled about my country, and nobody's working together in Washington and stuff. And I thought, why don't our kids know about the government? I said, Mr. Mayor, sometime would you come over there when we have the school kids in, and let's start teaching them. Let's start teaching them about who you are or what the government is. Would you just come? Don't come as a politician and start talking like, and you know, and things like that. But just come and let's see what they do. We had about 60 kids, wasn't it? 2 classes, and they would sit in the floor playing with all the things in the museum. Their eyes just light up, you know. And so he came, I called him, and he said he couldn't, and he surprised me. He stopped what he was doing, and he came. And he walked in, and so I took his hand and went over and said, kids, just a moment, or students, I said, just a moment. I want to introduce you to someone. And I said, he'll answer a question if you like. And I said, I want you to know this is our mayor. And I started to say Mr. Joseph Lucero. I finally got it out. And that whole body in unison went, the mayor? And I thought, it wouldn't have been better if it had been the President of the United States. It would not have been. And then I started thinking, and I told somebody tonight, why don't we start getting our local government, and take all of you at different times during the year. Every time we have students together like this, notify you ahead of time. Would you come and talk to them? They asked him why the taxes were high. They asked him how much he made. They asked him questions that were just absolutely beautiful. He stayed 5 minutes, and they went out of there in awe. And so all of us working together, don't tell me we can't make a difference. We can. We really can, and we don't have to fight about it. We really don't have to fight about it. Peace is better, okay? Thank all of you very much.
Thank you very much, Dorothy.
Would you that stuff with them?
There's one for everybody. No, wait a minute.
And so with that, we will move forward with business brought by city staff. Tonight we have 3 items from Public Works. We have 2 public hearings and a resolution. And Pat, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I think we get to wrap up this fire sale we've had on alley vacations lately. The first one is an alley vacation in the Alamosa addition. I think Heather has an exhibit. This alley, although platted as an alley, has not been improved or used as an alley for a very long time, if ever. It's one of the few blocks in the city that has 3 individual connecting alleys in the shape of an H, and this vacation request is for the middle leg of that alley system. Currently, and for quite some time, the alley's been encroached upon by trees, mature landscaping, fences, and private occupation. It contains no public utilities that we're aware of and has no signs of recent use. The petitioners are hoping that the vacation and consolidation of the alley into their private property will alleviate some of the historic graffiti that they've dealt with in the past.
Thank you. Any questions of Pat before I open the public hearing? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing and second reading on ordinance number 17-2017, vacation block 5, Alamosa Addition, City of Alamosa. If there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and second reading on ordinance number 17-2017. Bring it to council for further discussion or a motion. Councilor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve ordinance number 17-2017, alley vacation, block 5, Alamosa Addition.
Councilor Stefano, I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Council. We'll move on to the next public hearing and second reading on ordinance number 16-2017, partial alley vacation, block 210, Washington Addition, City of Alamosa. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, sir. The westerly portion of this alley, if you look to the west on the exhibit, that alley extended another quarter of a mile to the end of the block. It was all vacated prior, and the western, the property owners adjacent to this portion of the alley have approached the city in the past about vacation, but that was prior to your approval of the Tucker-Wagner annexation last year that brought the alley into the city jurisdiction. Now that the alley's in now that the alley is in the city, they would like for you to consider this vacation, the partial vacation of the alley. Previously has created what is essentially a dead-end road with no outlet other than access across private property. It's not accessible to emergency vehicles for this reason. There are no city utilities in the alley, and we can foresee no need to maintain the public right-of-way as it exists today.
Thank you, Pat. Are there any questions of Pat before I open the public hearing? And then I will open the public hearing on ordinance number 16-2017. If there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium and make your wishes known. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing on ordinance number 16-2017. Bring it back to council for further discussion or decision. Councilor Stefano.
I move that we approve ordinance number 16-2017 on second reading.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll move on to resolution number 17-2017, the request of Colorado Rural Housing and Development Corporation for final plat approval for Montaña Azul Estates filing number 6. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, sir. This proposal, I think, yes, thank you, Heather. I think while it's larger than we're used to seeing, this proposal has a total of 48 lots. It is a natural extension of the previous filings by the applicant and meets all of our current zoning and development codes. This application was originally scheduled for review and consideration by the Planning Commission in their May meeting, but staff pulled the item from the agenda because of the submission of a traffic study that failed to report an adequate level of service for the traffic generated by the site. That report has since been amended by the engineer to indicate appropriate levels of service that meet our existing code. The Planning Commission was also concerned about the seemingly small lot sizes. We have fully reviewed the proposal, and it does indeed meet all applicable codes. When council approved the Sierra Vista annexation in 2003, that annexation created a commercial business zone north of Tremont and a residential high district south of Tremont. The residential high zoning is the least restrictive of all of our residential zonings, and it comprises areas for use in a variety of housing types, such as single-family detached housing, attached single-family dwellings, townhouses, and multi-unit residential units at apartment densities. Then this zoning district would allow by right, assuming similar street layout and right-of-way widths, if they were to use the property to their maximum numbers, they would be able to, by right, put 202 single-family homes on the property, or 361 apartment units. So should CRHDC continue with their current development plan, they'll be placing 48 single-family homes in the proposed development, much less than the number that would be allowed by right if they were to change their current business plan. These lot sizes, while well within the restrictions of our existing code, they are market-driven. So the comprehensive plan has identified a need for more affordable housing, and I think CRHDC is probably our most prolific residential developer in recent years, and they know more than anybody their market. They know their customers, they know the local market, and they're not going to plat the lots if they don't think they can dispose of them.
Thank you, Pat. Do we have any questions of Pat? Councilor Griego.
I didn't have any questions of Pat, but I just want to make a couple comments. You see that Al Gold is in the audience, and I just want to say how grateful I am to Al, because through the years that I've sat on this council, he took areas in my district that were dumping sites where people would dump their couches, their bed springs and stuff. He cleaned them up. He put together some really nice developments. He's made dreams come true for a lot of people. And just the development that he's made out there has been incredible. I did have some concerns, and I was able to speak with him a little bit, and I spoke with Pat on this new development that he's putting on there, and the way they were putting 40 houses back to back, and he did explain that the lots are a little bit more affordable and stuff. But I still have a problem with it because of how it's designed. You got such a beautiful subdivision out there, and then you throw spreads like this, and then you're telling us that maybe they're probably going to come back with 48 more the same way, or just this one?
No, this one here, their plan right now is to put 48 homes on this property. By right, they could, if they were to plat it and change it to townhouses, they could put 202 individual single-family residences on it.
Yeah. And I just wanted like I said, I appreciate Al Golden. I just wanted for him to listen to my comments, because as we continue to grow, and that area is going to grow, you got those two new schools there, and this is just the start. So if we don't do it correctly, and by law, he's doing it by law. If we don't do it right, I think, and try to do something nice out there in the future, it's not going to look good. And I express that down. And like I said, I'm so grateful because he has done a lot for the community and the houses out there. And you go out there and visit with those people, boy, to own a house is the greatest thing in the world, and he's made that dream come true. And another thing that I have, and I spoke to the city manager, is as we develop these areas out there, there's no parks. There's nothing and these are all family-driven houses. And one thought was maybe to take those drainage areas and turn those into parks. And maybe 1 or 2 weeks out of the year, those things will flood, but you'll have stuff in there where kids can enjoy parks. And that's something that maybe Mr. Gold and his staff, and even us, I don't know how we can, I know we can't push it, but at least we can at least suggest so that something can happen. Right now, it has a lot of water in there, or some water, and all it does is it's creating mosquitoes and stuff, and people dump some stuff out there too. So But I just wanted to make those comments, and hopefully it falls on their developers' ears that in the future, we look at this, because I'm sure he's going to continue going out there. And like you said, he's done a lot. He's been one of the biggest guys that has developed the most out there. And I just want to make sure that those comments come out there. So, thank you.
And a little bit in support of Councilor Griego, his comments are very much in line with what we discussed with the comprehensive plan update. And you'll probably remember during the presentation, the consultant presented how many parks we actually have for the size of our community, and we have a lot. But we also noted in the comp plan, we do have an area in our community that we do not have an appropriate park, and this is that area. And so I think as Pat has traveled the states, he has come across some fairly innovative uses that communities are doing that Councilor Griego explained on using their stormwater areas also as parks. And so from this perspective, it's something that we spoke yesterday at the staff level to have in the CIP. I'm not sure if it'll be funded yet, but we want to make sure and get it in the CIP to put a park in this area. The good news is the city, since this detention and stormwater area has been dedicated to the city, we already own the property. So it'd be a matter of then how do we enhance it to still serve as a stormwater purpose, but become more of a recreational need as well. And so I think there's some exciting opportunities there. And it's something that's been in line with our recently completed comp plan as well.
I think in the future, as we develop out there, and maybe our rules and regulations right now don't lend to that, I think we need to change that so that they do put parks in there instead of the drainage sites, and that's something that we'll have to work on.
I think that tool is in place. It just hasn't been used in the past.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Councilor Griego. I totally agree. I think, when it comes to quality of life issues, that's not only for adults, it's for children as well. And we have quite a number of lots out there. Can you tell me what, I'm having trouble looking at the width and depth of these lots. What's the average width and depth of these lots?
The average width is anywhere from 85 to 100 feet. The depth is about 150, I believe. The average lot size is 8,400 square feet. Our ordinance requires 7,000 square feet. Sure. I took the opportunity to do a quick internet search looking at minimum lot sizes in other communities in the area. Monte Vista is the same as us with 7,000. Salida allows 5,600 square foot lots. La Junta allows 6,000. Gunnison, I think, is 6,500, and Pagosa Springs is 7,500.
Sure.
So we're up towards the higher end of the minimum lot size requirement.
Sure, that's well within reason. I've got two neighbors, and I think the average frontage is probably about 53 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The in-town lots are smaller than this.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But back again to parks and recreational areas for kids in areas like this, I think that's important. Maybe we can encourage the Planning Commission to take a good hard look at that as well. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Pat. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Griego.
For that, I'll make the motion that we pass resolution number 17, 2000. Excuse me? Oh, I thought.
Is this a public hearing?
Do we need a public hearing for this?
Okay, because I've got a resolution. Okay. Well, with that, I will open the public hearing on resolution number 17-2017. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against this? Please approach the podium. Mr. McCann.
Dan McCann, 1809 Sunset Drive, Alamosa, Colorado. Great question, Charlie. Your area out there, and you're right. It's growing, and you want it to grow right. 30 years from now, and I know my friend Charlie ex-Marine's going to be around 30 years from now. We'll go out and hang out together. You know what he'd be saying? Dan, we screwed up. Hey, do it right. And the size of these lots, you're not going the minimum. That's pretty good. So I think it looks like a really good plan. And Charlie and I go way back. Semper Fi, buddy.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak for or against this? Seeing none, I'll close the public. Oh, Mr. Gold?
I just want to make a few comments. First of all, thank you very much, Mayor and council members, for the opportunity to be here tonight, and for your consideration in approving this Phase 6 of the Montaña Azul subdivision. I just wanted to say that our organization has been around for 46 years, over 46 years. And of those 46 years, we've been in the valley for 30-something years. We have built over 250 homes here in Alamosa alone and have contributed over $38 million into the economy here. The individuals, the working families here really appreciate the fact that they have an opportunity to build a house. And it's not a handout, it's a hand up that we're providing, because these individuals work very hard to build their homes. They contribute over 1,100 hours of sweat equity just to build their homes, and they sacrifice weekends, evenings, and so forth. They're not getting any kind of handout. They work for it, they build it, they have a loan, they pay for it. And we're very pleased to have this program here in Alamosa and across the San Luis Valley. So I just wanted to thank you for that. I thank you for all your support that you've given us, the past 30-some years. But I also wanted to mention to you that there's other services that we're providing in the community that you may not be aware of. And one of the services that we provide is homebuyer education. We want to make sure that every individual that's going to buy a home or build a home understands the importance of owning a home, what the requirements are, what they're getting themselves into. And I think that this basically makes a better homeowner. The other thing that we do is for those individuals that may have credit issues, we help them repair their credit. We make sure that through what we call our anyway, it's part of the counseling program that we have. And so they have an opportunity to meet with our counselors. We set them on a plan so that they can so they can be mortgage ready within a period of time. Some of them take 3 months, some 6 months. There's some that we go as far as 2 years, and they still, work towards becoming mortgage ready. The other piece that we do is we're also, the other service that we offer is lending. We do first mortgage lending, we do down payment assistance. We are a CHAFA approved lender. We are what's called a CDFI, a community financial institution, where we're able to access capital from the U.S. Department of Treasury. They will match dollar for dollar any other resource that we're able to leverage, like from a bank or from a private foundation. If, for example, we're able to leverage, let's say, a $2 million loan at 1%, CDFI will match the term. If we're able to get a $300,000 grant from, let's say, the Division of Housing or from Federal Home Loan Bank, they will match that. And so that capital we use basically to offer in not only first mortgages, but we also do small business lending. We have helped some of these small businesses here in Alamosa with small loans so that they could either start their business or expand their business. And the other thing that we do is we're also, not only do we do single family, but we also do multifamily. We have 2 senior projects that we own and manage in Del Norte, Colorado, La Hacienda del Norte for seniors, and also Casas. We also have a property in Pagosa Springs, 24 units of affordable housing. We've developed 40 units in Delta, Colorado for agriculture workers. We have an affordable senior project in Newcastle, 24 units, and we're just ready to break ground on 50 additional senior units, which we're hoping to start here within the next couple of weeks. We have an affordable housing rental project in
Hayden, Colorado, which is about 25 miles west of Steamboat Springs. We have an affordable housing project in Sterling, 48 units. We just completed 50 rental units in Fort Morgan for agriculture workers. So those are some of the services that we also provide, not only on a statewide basis, but here in the San Luis Valley. And as I mentioned, we have pumped approximately $38 million into the Alamosa community. We've taken, as Mr. Grego said, we have taken raw land and put it back on the tax rolls. We've built the infrastructure, curb, gutter, roads, and we're very pleased to be part of this community, and we really appreciate all the support that we get from the city, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Gold. Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak for or against this? None, I'll close the public hearing and bring it to council for a decision or further discussion. Councilor Stefano.
I move that we approve Resolution 17-2017, the request for Rural Housing and Development Corporation to final plat approval for Montana Azul Estates. I just want to make a comment. I know a lot of people that have worked on these homes, and it is an exciting thing to see these people work hard. They do work hard. They help each other to build these houses. I've been out there myself, and I've helped some of them. And I think it's great, but I also agree with Mr. Grego that they should design some kind of a plat or designate certain area for recreation area for these homes. That's 48 houses is a lot of people. I think they need somewhere to get some R&R in that area.
I've got a motion. Is there second? I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Daniel.
Yeah, thank you. It will be brief. I just want to say I really appreciate the intention of having affordable housing in our area. I know that's one of the challenges that people have. I appreciate, Pat, your team working with the companies and CRHDC and all of the work they've done. That's a lot of houses for people who wouldn't have been able to have houses, and a lot of places that mean something to people because they helped to build it. And so I just wanted to say I appreciate that, and I'm really excited about the potential for this project.
Thank you. Got a motion and a second. Start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Council. We'll move on to police. We've got a first reading on ordinance number 20-17 and an ordinance approving an intergovernmental agreement with the Alamosa School District to provide a school resource officer from the Alamosa Police Department to the Alamosa School District. Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Mayor, Council, it's that time of year again that we renew the IGA with the Alamosa School District for the school resource officer position that we provide to them. As you've read and will read, that the agreement's the same as it has been for years. They're still agreeing to pay up to 50% or 50% up to $25,000 of the officer's salary. As you all know, Bruce Luco recently retired, so we've replaced him with Dana Nauer. Officer Nauer is excited to get into the schools and work with all levels, the children from grade school all the way through high school. I think she's going to do an awesome job.
Thank you, Chief. Councilor Vigil.
Thank you, Mayor. If there's no further discussion, I move that we approve the ordinance on first reading and set it for a public hearing on August 2nd, 2017, or soon thereafter, approving ordinance number 20-2017.
Councilor Daniel.
I second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on ordinance number 20-2017? Seeing none, start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Chief. We'll move on to Parks and Recreation. We have a motion to approve the proposed Eagle Scout project installing an archery range at the Oxbow Recreation Area. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'd like to introduce Joshua Kelly with Troop 294 of the Boy Scouts. Joshua approached us, the Community Rec Board, in February of this year about the creation of an archery range at Oxbow Recreation Area. I think the board and staff were excited about this idea, considering there has been a need in the community for it. After further discussions and talking to the ranch leasee and safety considerations and parking and all the things that go along with it, the rec board again considered it in April of this year, and they have the rec board's unanimous support and city staff. So I'll let Joshua speak on the topic a little bit, and if you have any questions for us, fire away.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for having me. So I want to start off a bit with what was my inspiration for this project. And as I was thinking about what I want to do for an Eagle project, I began to think about how I could really benefit the community. And as I was thinking about it, because there are many ways I could have, service projects, cleaning up, I was also decided, well, I also want to incorporate maybe an interest. So that way it just makes it more relatable to people. And as I was doing it, I said, what if I put an archery range inside the city? What if there was that? And as I sat down and think about it with my father and some other people, and we started talking about it, and it just kind of clicked. Because a very large problem in the city is that, I do it too, is that the closest archery range is in Etnido, which is 30 minutes away, and there's a lot of times people just don't want to make that drive, spending on gas, and they have to go out, and they're that far outside the city in case something happens. And this way, they're not shooting in their backyards either. And it provides a really safe place to shoot it, because the way it's set up, thankfully, is that it will not be close to people. And even if, it's not even possible for me to make a shot in the direction that they will be shooting, that it's possible for it to hit anyone. The worst concern was cows, which was discussed, and cows will only graze there for a few months. And as it was discussed, the people who are leasing it to us, leasees, have decided that they will move it back on their fencing a bit, which was very, very gracious of them, and because it was city lands, and so now we just had that much less of prevention. And the way we're shooting, if you will look at, actually this one will work perfectly. The closest road is still about a good 1,200 feet away, and it won't, and so there's no possibility of an arrow getting that far. And as such, though, we are going to put a ban on there that you are not allowed to use crossbows, because those are a higher type of bow. But other than that, recurve, compound, and longbow are all acceptable. Excuse me. So when so looking at the supplies that I'll need for this is we looked at, because we'll need gravel, targets, and the edging for the gravel to make the lanes. And if you would look at the diagram that should be included with your guys' packet, basically the edging and the gravel will be for the 20-yard targets, the 40-yard targets, and the 60-yard targets. The 100-yard targets were partially speculation about whether or not there would be it would be ideal for it to have, and if they were there, it would be for more of a free range. My personal recommendation would be to not go for it, and the simple reason being is that that's something that's a lot more dangerous in aspects, because if there's someone who's not paying attention and they walk all the way down, then they walk into basically what I would call the firing range of all three others. And also, with it being adjustable, meaning that people will bring out their own targets, there might be people who decide that that means it's acceptable to bring out whatever they want, and maybe bring out a target that could cause an arrow to deflect into the disc golf course, which would be a dangerous idea. So with targets, the initial cost I was looking at was about $800. But fortunately, the leasees of the land that we will be using, Darius Allen and Alan Simpson, they very generously donated hay bales, 4 foot by 4 foot by 8 foot hay bales. Now these will stop an arrow, no doubt about that. And with that, they've also very, very nicely, I'm very grateful, they also said that they would, every once in a while when the bales started to get worn and ragged, they would switch them out, and which I hope will save the city some money in its upkeep of the range. With the gravel that I was looking at for about 1.5 inch deep for the lanes, which would be for the 20-yard targets, the 40-yard targets, and the 60-yard targets. excuse me. So for those, the cost I was looking at is about $400. Again, that was donated, so that already eliminates cost, which is I'm very grateful for, because that, again, brings down the cost substantially. And so with that, we will be able to get it and put it down. So with the firing lanes themselves, the idea is that at the beginning of the intersection of each firing lane heading down towards the target and the firing pad where they will shoot, I want to put a concrete pad that's a yard by a yard. The reason why is because regulation standards, that's about what you'll have, and that's a good 3 feet. I mean, if I do this, I'm not going to go over 3 feet on that concrete pad. No, I mean, unless they were very big or they were doing a lunge, I'm not going to go over it. So with that in mind, that will also lower the cost, because instead of having a large, long concrete pad, we will only have 6 smaller squares, and that will take, to my calculations, and I'm not a professional, but not even a cubic yard of concrete. And I might be off again. That's just me. So with that, so that will be a cost, and that will cost somewhere around maybe $90 just for that concrete. And then we come to the edging, and this is where I was hoping to maybe get a bit, some contribution from the city, if that's okay. With the edging, is that the edging is probably one of the more expensive parts of it. But, so I would leave it up to the city really to decide if they want about which, the 2 edgings I was looking at is a plastic edging and a metal edging. Now the metal edging is going to cost about $300 to $500 more, while the plastic edging costs about $750. When I went to Avismeyer Landscape and Construction, for the quote that I got, it will cost about $1,800. Now the difference is that metal is going to last a lot longer, but plastic is also cheaper and frankly is a bit easier to replace, because this kind of edging, you just pound it into the ground, and it will take a lot less time to repair it if something happens. But that I would rather leave up to the city if they would like to consider that. So my completion time that I want to look at is within the next 6 weeks. Now with that, I also understand that there may be things that need to be addressed, and it will also depend on the weather and the time of volunteers, and I'm willing to accept that. I have a nice amount of time set out for me to get this done, and I'll admit I procrastinated for probably 2 years, but at least I finally grown some responsibility, right? And that's all I really have for you guys, so thank you.
Very good, Josh. That's a whole lot of insight. Not only that, it's well-researched. You've actively pursued funding and support, and you're a very articulate young man in your presentation. I admire you. Thank you for that. Councilor Vigil.
Thank you, Mayor. Josh, like the mayor said, you're very well versed and you know this inside and out, and we really appreciate that. You talked about plastic or metal edging. What would you recommend?
Personally, I would recommend metal edging because it'll last longer, and with it, it'll probably be a better investment, because if something were to happen, because I know the Recs department volunteered maybe about $750 each year to keep it updated and to keep it up to date and making sure that it's all good. And the reason why is if something came up and something else needed to happen, like if they needed to expand the parking lot or if they needed to add some more restroom facilities, something like that, that way they could use that money towards that instead of having to spend it maybe every year and a half on new edging.
Okay, and thank you for that information. And I kind of agree with you. Metal will look better, and if we want to make this a nice facility, if he wants to make this a nice facility, we should go with metal too. But a couple questions for Andy. I know that the disc golf course is close to this.
Yes.
And I also know that the guys out there, the players, there was talk at one time of using this area as just a driving range. Is that still in use? Do they still do that?
I believe, first of all, the orientation of the archery range is dead opposite of the disc golf course, just so everyone's clear. So the range will be pointing to the northeast there, so I don't really see any chance of arrow unless somebody was pointing the other direction or doing something really silly. So we don't really have to worry about that. In terms of their practice area, they are more on the west side of the fence there. So I believe it's not in their practice area at all. And they've been consulted on this project.
Cool.
So they have their blessing.
Thank you, Andy. And then, and tell me if I'm wrong, Council, but wasn't the first 9 holes of the disc golf course also an Eagle Scout project at first?
I believe so, yes.
So this is my first time with an Eagle Scout project. Does the city, what I'm assuming is that this young man will do the project, then over time the city takes over it and maintains it and that type of stuff?
That's correct.
I believe we've had more than one Eagle Scout project. We've had an Eagle Scout project over at Carroll Park.
At the dog park?
Yes, and some of the others. Absolutely.
So the city takes over?
So I don't know, taking over, it's always the city property. We then obviously work closely with the Eagle Scout to make sure that they're accomplishing what they need to accomplish, but that it's also an asset that will continue to work for the city. So we will continue to work closely like Andy has already with the Eagle Scout. And once he's able to complete his project, then it's a city asset. So we'll continue to work closely in that regards.
Okay, thank you, Heather. Again, thank you, Josh, for all this information. I think this is a great opportunity for a specialized group of our community. There's a lot of hunters in town, and this would serve them pretty well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Stefano.
Great presentation, Josh. I like it. My only concern is you're not going to allow any of the power bows there, like the crossbows. They travel quite a distance at a really fast speed. Are you going to not allow that? Is this all going to be hand, you know what I mean? Just the hand bows? Because
Yeah, no.
that worries me that somebody comes in with one of them big crossbows and hurts someone.
There will be rules stating that no crossbows or powered bows like that are allowed of any kind. The simple reason being is because for those, they can go a lot further, and then yes, we do have to factor in damage to cars or people.
Thank you.
Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Andy. This was a great presentation. I do have a question kind of along Councilor Vihil's lines. The request for the edging costs, how do we talk about that? How does that work?
That's the first time I've heard of that. So I think if council overall is in support of this project, you can approve it and just have staff work out some of those details on what we think is appropriate and that type of thing. So that's the first time I've heard of the request. I don't know if it's the first time for Andy or not, but I know from a rec board perspective too, I didn't remember a request. So, but it's something where overall, if you guys are still in favor of the project, you could still approve it tonight with direction just to work out those details between staff and the Eagle Scout.
If it works without the edging. I mean, if it doesn't work without the edging, then it seems like you got to figure that issue out.
With the city manager ability to spend within the funded line items, I think we would probably be okay from a budget perspective.
Councilor Hensley.
Josh, you did a fantastic job. I think this is pretty exciting. I love every new thing, new activity that we allow for our community members. From everywhere, from now being able to use the river more. I'm seeing all the paddle boarders. The disc golf, I know when the disc golf came out, I went and bought my discs and played around with it. My disc golf is worse than my actual real golf, but I still had fun. But what I think this is a great opportunity too is for those who may have not ever done archery. So even myself, I'm thinking, hey, that'd be kind of cool to try out. So it allows that opportunity for people that if they're not necessarily inclined to hunt or things like that, but would still be interested in it, or those who are starting off with hunting. But I just love that there's another possibility and a potential for things to do in our community. So thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it.
Councilor Griego.
Great job, Josh. I think the idea is really good. And just like Vihil says, when they did the disc golf out there, I didn't think it was going to work. But there's a lot of people that have taken to that. So this is an idea that I think that will probably take off also. I didn't know that they had one in Antonito, archery out there, so I think it'll work. So thank you very much. Good job.
If I could just, as I'm mulling over the city attorney's comments, just if we want to make it contingent on the ability of staff to be able to work something out. Clearly, if this edging's more expensive than some of these other materials or something like that, we can always bring it back before council. Or if it's something that, staff feels needs to be fundraising or that kind of thing. But if you want to make it contingent upon being able to work that out, that might be better wording that also captures probably what the city attorney was alluding to.
As council was visiting with you, one of the things I thought about was, gee, I wonder how many more of these discs we sell, or how many more of these bow and arrows are we going to sell, which really basically adds to the economic well-being of our community, especially in a small market. That's really interesting. Councilor Daniel.
If there's no other comment, Mayor, I move to approve the Eagle Scout project installing an archery range at the Oxbow Recreation Area contingent upon the ability of staff to work out with Joshua and the rec department the edging and the other issues related to the build.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion to approve the proposed Eagle Scout project?
Just a quick info for you, Mayor. You said about the economic impact. Ever since the disc golf park was built, Colorado Sports now has a section just for discs. So there you go.
Thank you. I've got a motion and a second, and start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
We'll move on to fire.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Heather, I didn't realize this was you. I was looking for the chief out in the back and didn't see him back there. Thank you.
Chief Chapman is on vacation, but since this was an item that received very little comments and it's the second reading, we wanted to go ahead and continue it forward on the council agenda tonight. As the chief presented at the previous meeting, we have some agreements with the fire district, but we did not have one that covered just the general operations. And so the intent of this MOU is to cover how we handle the payment of the chief, the officers, when we get calls, those types of things. Chief Chapman also mentioned that should we want to do any joint projects in the future, such as purchasing large equipment or things like that, we can always do an agreement related to that at that point in time. So this is just essentially to cover how we're currently operating, because everyone may not be here 20 years from now, and we just want to make sure it's clear. We have met with the district board and they've approved it, and so tonight before you is the second reading and public hearing.
Thank you, Heather. So with that, I will open the public hearing on ordinance number 18-2017. If there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak for or against this ordinance, please approach the podium and make your wishes known. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to council for a decision or further discussion. Councilor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve on second reading ordinance number 18-2017.
I second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll move on to City Manager Legal. Is this Heather or Eric? Eric?
It's Eric.
Thank you, sir.
So Pat and I were having a discussion a couple months ago about the city's standard construction specifications of 1987, which are referenced in the existing ordinances a few times and have been superseded at least 3 times, probably more like 5 times since 1987, without a corresponding change to the ordinance. So this is just a housekeeping issue. Well, it is more than a housekeeping issue, because what this ordinance will do is allow for the Public Works Director to periodically modify and update the city's standard construction specifications without running that through council. So that will be just clear that that's been delegated to Public Works' discretion. The reason for that is Public Works has the appropriate background in that kind of specification stuff, and if council wants to muck around in those specifications, then you should not approve this ordinance, because this delegates that responsibility to Public Works and will then streamline the ordinances so that any development is done with respect to or in accordance with the most currently promulgated specifications as promulgated by Public Works.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Vihil.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve ordinance number 19-2017 on first reading and set it for a public hearing on August 2nd at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter.
Councilor Griego.
I had a comment, but I'll do a second. I'll second also. My comment is, you said streamline the ordinance. So when he streamlines it, does it come back to council and say, hey, these changes have been made with the ordinance, or what do you mean by streamlining?
Well, what I mean is that in the future, as the construction specifications are updated, council will not approve those. Those don't get run by council for approval. That's the way the Public Works Department is operating, and it will promulgate the updated specifications. The streamlining is that delegation to Public Works on the one hand, and then on the second hand, it is just referring to the then existent, the adopted specifications, rather than trying to specify a particular year, and then we have to go and change the ordinances every year that we change the specifications.
And would it be helpful if Pat explained a little bit of what these construction specifications
Thank you.
cover? Would that be helpful?
I think, yeah, thank you.
Okay, because that way you would know what you're streamlining.
So the construction specifications, they address all of the more technical, in-the-ground kind of aspects of the construction. They deal with the gradation of grade 5 versus grade 6 aggregate base course. They deal with what ASTM testing standards should be used to determine proper compaction or to determine proper air entrainment in concrete, things like that. The things that I would be changing autonomously would be those very detail-oriented minutia kind of things. I wouldn't change anything without some consultation, at least dealing with bonding requirements or payment requirements, things like that. It would be mostly the very detail-oriented construction aspects of the specifications.
And what are those usually based on? Because I know from a building code, we have the international building codes, they come up with updates and all that kind of stuff. Is there something similar in regards to these kind of recommendations, the best practices that are out there?
They are based on best practices. They're based on industry standards and industry practice. Things change, tests evolve, materials change, pipe materials change. There's new pipe materials coming out every day. We may discover in 5 years that something has surpassed PVC in pipe. You know, just things like that it'll deal with. Like I said, compaction requirements, the qualities of concrete that are used in our sidewalks, the finishes of concrete, the color of concrete, you know, things like that are just, they don't change every day, but, you know, once a year, it's probably worth a quick update, and just in a matter to, like Eric said, streamline the process. It's something that we can do in-house and not have you muck around in those details.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Councilor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to make sure that I understand, the standard construction specifications that you would be changing could also include bonding and things like that. So should we change, or as we go forward with the public reading, take that out of the purview of the Public Works Director?
The bonding was probably a poor example because
Okay.
that's in the charter.
Okay, that's fine.
There are things like how long do we hold retainage?
Okay.
But how long do we require the payment of retainage? There's a whole smorgasbord of construction-related details in there and contract management kind of stuff.
Because I agree with you. I don't want us messing around with that either, but you're not going to be here forever and we're not going to be here forever. So in the specificity piece of that, that was the only kind of just if we needed to say anything different.
Yeah, that was one of the topics of discussion I had with Eric was, is that something that we want to give to the Public Works Director? What if I went off the reservation and got crazy? And he made a good point. If I was to do that, you'd have every contractor in town in here telling you that I went crazy.
So, Pat, let me ask you a question. So this basically affords you or gives you the freedom to analyze and individualize the construction standards you deem necessary for specific projects, yes or no?
Not specific projects. If I make a change to the specifications, they would apply to every project.
Thank you, Pat. Councilor Vigil?
I think this is letting the expert do his job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. There's no further discussion. Start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Council. We'll now move on to committee reports. Who has a committee report? Ms. Hensley?
All right, so I was at the marketing board meeting last week, which I don't think I need to say a whole lot because I think it obviously was in the paper substantially. I will say a couple of things. On August 4th and 5th, we do have our Beat the Heat barbecue cook-off, which will be really exciting. They're working on having quite a few cookers there. The Great American Cookout Tour, which is sponsored by KCBS, which I'm not necessarily a barbecue guru, but I gather this is a big deal. And so them coming is awesome. Again, and then I guess the other thing, which again was definitely publicized, but Jeff Woodard did resign off of the marketing board. So I assume they'll be looking for somebody new to replace him.
Thank you. Anyone else have a committee report? I attended the COG meeting. There is a new website. DRG has a new website, slvdrg.org. Hugh Halleck kind of put that together. It includes 6 counties and 18 communities. Talk about you can access that website for organizations, for programs, partners about SLVDRG, how to contact them, and how to donate. They are in the process of going from community that have not participated in the funding of COG, so that will happen. Not everyone has participated. I was happy to know that Alamosa has, I think they've already cashed a check. I'm not sure. Thank you for that. And so that takes care of that. The other meeting I attended was with the rec board, and they have a 5-year capital improvement plan. The 4 major items that we're going to deal with in 2017 are the multi-use ice rink facility, replacing aging treadmills, and fairground booking chutes, which was $25,000, a FRC walking track replacement of $40,000, and those are what's going to happen in 2017. They've got a 5-year plan. I put it in the reading file, let you look at it, and we'll go from there. Other than that, Is there anything you'd like to add, Andy, or pretty much covers it?
Just to clarify, the five-year plan, that's your CIP that you approved with the budget, so it's an appendix on your budget document, is what we reviewed with them, and then they brainstormed on, are we collecting all the projects that are out there? Are there some not listed in the CIP? And Andy's going to take that feedback and work with Pat to incorporate that for council consideration.
Thank you, Heather.
I had a question, Mayor.
Go ahead.
The alternate on that is who? Am I still the alternate on that? Or Liz?
I think it's Liz, but, because that's what they're saying. So, but let me double check and I can confirm that.
All right, thank you.
Can I add something?
Chris, were you there? Weren't you there at one time? What happened?
I wasn't there yesterday because I got lost in time.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Liz?
I actually looked it up the other day because I had gotten a email, and I went, I think I'm the alternate on this. So I actually did look it up to make sure, and so I am the alternate on this.
Thank you, Liz. All right. We will go on then to staff announcements.
Andy, if you wanted to talk a little bit about the upcoming fair.
Oh, you spoiled my surprise. No, I just wanted to remind council next week is our city services fair, 4:30 to 6:30 at Cole Park on Wednesday evening. So this is a good chance to interact with the public in a little more informal setting. And staff enjoys updating the public on upcoming programs and showing off some of our tools and technology that we use. And it's just a fun afternoon. And you're welcome to take over grill master duties if you'd like. But anyway, just a reminder, and hope to see you there.
Any questions for Andy before we move into some other announcements?
Any questions of Andy? Thank you, Andy.
So
Thank you, Heather.
before I have Pat come up, because he will be the popular one with all the construction updates, I'm sure there will be some questions. Just a little bit of just reminders of some of the upcoming meetings for council. We were fortunate to be able to attend the groundbreaking today for the Alamosa County judicial system. I believe one of the speakers shared that this actually started all the way back in 2012. And so just congratulations to the county and the judicial system on staying focused and being meticulous and doing the research, the study, and the public outreach. And it culminated today with the groundbreaking. So that was a very positive event. Andy just shared with you that the City Services Fair is coming up July 26th. I might need some glasses. We did also add a special council meeting that night at 6 o'clock. It should not necessarily be very long. It's after continued discussions with legal. They want to change slightly the structure of how we're financing the ice rink. It doesn't change the amounts. It's just running it through the ACLC like we did the water. And so we just need to get the parameters ordinance before you in a timely manner so we can lock in those rates that we received. So we did add that. We are also adding an executive session to that to just do a brief update on some water acquisition possibilities. So that is all that will be that night. So we apologize, but we wanted to be timely with both of those items, but we couldn't get it in time for tonight's meeting. We do have the annual retreat that is coming up, and that is August 4th through 5th. I think it's always a great time for council to be in a more informal setting and to discuss items that may not always be pressing, but they may be bigger issues, strategic issues, those types of things. And so it's a good time to really work together as a group and develop expectations for the coming year. So that is coming up quickly. The city clerk has been working on getting the candidate orientation materials pulled together and preparing for that session. That will be August 7th. We seem to have a lot of interest this year in the election, and so we'll have quite the turnout, hopefully, as the city clerk conducts that. The employee barbecue is August 18th, and I know that the team would love any volunteers for the dunk tank. So if you would like to be a volunteer, I've already signed myself up, so I'm not pushing something I haven't already committed to. I know they could use some more volunteers for the dunk tank for that event. We have moved it actually back to Cole Park. We think we'll be able to kind of do a little bit more, and we have some volunteers from the community who are going to be doing the cooking and helping man some of that, so our committee members don't have to do it and can actually enjoy it. So we'll make sure to show some appreciation for those volunteers. August 2nd, we have set a work session. It's the item that Councilor Vigil brought up in regards to, let's just kind of do what our takeaways were from the CML conference and to talk about what that is. So that's the work session that we've set for August 2nd. Jim, the IT director, and myself are going to start visiting some of the service clubs in the community in August to talk about Senate Bill 152. We want to make sure they understand what that is and that it's going to be on the ballot, and give them an opportunity to ask any questions and receive some answers. So I wanted to let council know that that is coming up. We obviously already have most of that on our website from an educational perspective, but we wanted to make sure that we don't just assume that this is something that's positive and doesn't need some education on what it means. And then lastly, it's come to my attention that some people may not realize that we do have a people's choice for our art. And so the voting is still open. It is on our website. The winner from the artist will receive a $1,000 stipend, and it goes until the end of August and will be announced the first Friday art hop in September. So I think we had such a big hoopla over all the art coming that we need to continue promoting some of the stuff that we're doing throughout the year related to the art. The art committee's actually already met and started thinking about what we want to do next year and making some recommendations to council, and there's just continues to be a lot of excitement related to that. I'll tell you at this point for the voting, we have about 30 votes, so there's still a lot of room for people to turn in their vote and do a people's choice on the artwork. So still very, very exciting. And unless there's questions for me, I'll turn it over to Pat because I think he's got a laundry list of updates of all the construction projects that we have going on right now.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you, sir. We have a lot happening. Out at the Parks and Cemetery building, you've seen some, if you've driven by and looked, you've seen some major changes out there that happened pretty quickly. Alcon is moving along nicely. They expect to complete the project in early October, which is nice. We were hoping for completion by November, but the way their schedule's working and the way the materials are flowing, it's looking like an early completion on that. We've got the building is completely framed and skinned in. The roof system is on. The plumbing, electrical, and HVAC rough-in is completed and waiting for inspection. In the they've poured some of the site concrete, the front stoop, the rear stoop, the drive pad into the garage. That's all been poured. In the next few weeks, we'll start to see some exterior finishes, some interior work like sheetrock and insulation, and that project is moving along nicely. The multi-use facility we're just finishing up with the submittal phase of the project where they submit everything that the subcontractors are going to use in the building. And that's everything from the steel building itself to the chiller to the light switches, the outlets, the cold water faucet in the bathroom. It's every day we probably review 20 submittals. Most of those are being done in-house by me and Harry, consulting with Andy on things that I think he'd be interested in. The chiller, things like that are being outsourced to trade professionals, mechanical engineers that know that business better than we do. They've started the dirt work, and they've already ordered subgrade compaction testing, so that's coming along fast. They'll bring in their imported fill and start with foundation work, I would guess, by the end of next week or the first part of the week thereafter. So the chiller has been ordered, the building has been ordered, so the two big pieces are in the works, and hopefully they stay on schedule, and we're still shooting for a January 1 open date.
Mayor, I had a question before you move on, Pat, on that. I was talking to the builder out there, and when we were having the ribbon cutting. Did they have to take those big trees out?
Yes.
On the site? They did have to take them?
They were in the middle of the rink.
Wow. Yeah, I was hoping that they were be able to save those trees, but I guess they're right in the middle.
Yeah, they were in the middle, and there was no way to avoid them.
Yeah.
Where they were positioned, we couldn't.
Shift
I
it.
tried to shift things around, and
I
it just didn't
appreciate
work. This didn't work.
Yeah.
We've moved the electrical systems that were out there, and we even found the old septic tank from the house that used to sit there.
No,
So we're getting it cleaned up.
yeah, thank you.
Mullins and First, you've seen a lot of action out there. Mullins is coming along nicely. If we can hold the rain off for another couple of days, it'll help a lot. They were beginning to form concrete on the north side of the street today and hoping to start pour tomorrow on that. We have asphalt tentatively scheduled for the end of next week. So ideally, we get the asphalt poured the end of next week, give it the weekend to set, and then we'll put that new Mullins Street in service. So that'll help some of the traffic flow issues out there. We've been doing a lot of utility work in the First and Murphy intersection, there's just that working right there is just, it's painful for motorists. There's no way around it. We have to close it, and it's just not convenient. We're doing everything we can to minimize the closures and keep the closures. I've told the contractors they can't start till 9 in the morning because I think people would rather have to go around at night than in the morning when they're in a hurry to get to work. So we're trying to stay out of that morning rush and let people do their thing. We are finishing up that utility work, and we'll be moving into the intersection with reconstruction work just as soon as we're able. We would like XL to relocate their gas facilities in that intersection before we go in there. We'll see how that works. They're working on the electrical relocation now. All the power poles and everything have been moved. They're moving wires across right now. So hopefully that stays on schedule, and we can keep moving forward there. But we are making progress, and things are happening. We've council approved $400,000 worth of plant mix seal coat earlier this year. That ACI plans to start that later this month. We've done the vast majority of the patching and skip coating and stuff necessary for kind of the pre-treatment to get ready for that plant mix seal coat. So that's gonna go off without a hitch, hopefully. And with that, I will answer any questions.
I do want to, back on the First Street project, I think we've had a couple incidents where the hospitals have been surprised with some outages, and it's obviously our project, but it's actually something that we weren't aware of that was going to happen and had no control over. So we're trying to make sure that we coordinate and make sure people can know who to contact when these occur and those types of things, and to put people together. But the control that we have, even though it is our project, is very limited, and the knowledge we have sometimes is very limited as well.
Obviously, XL operates independently of the city. They have scheduled outages without telling us. They had an outage Monday morning for several hours, and their method of notification was, I've been told, a sticky note on the door. So like Valley-wide came to work Monday morning, they had no computers, they had no phones, they couldn't take patients, they couldn't schedule appointments, they were unhappy. So I did my best to convince them that we were just as surprised as they were. We had no idea of the outage, and we have tried to work with XL to bolster their notice a little bit more in the future.
And make introductions with who they need to talk to directly with Excel, so they don't feel like they're getting their runaround either. We want to make sure they know who they can talk to when they have these issues.
And we're just trying desperately to keep the hospital and the university and all the residents aware of what's going on, any schedule changes, what's happening, what's going to happen, what to expect, things like that.
Pat, I noticed that XL Energy has moved the poles further to the north along First Street, but is that the extent of the number of poles that they plan to erect at this point in time? Do you know, or that's it? Because it's not going all the way over to Edgemont.
It is not going all the way over to Edgemont. Once we get east of Faculty Drive, the sidewalk moves to about 12 feet. So we have good wide sidewalk access, and it was felt that there's the back curb, and then we have about 10 feet of sidewalk, and the poles are right in the sidewalk right behind the back of curb. So we still have a good 8 or 9 feet of sidewalk right behind those poles. Immediately behind the sidewalk, the university has 2 fiber duct runs.
Right.
And by then, we're already into the parking lot over there. So there really is no place to move those. We got lucky that the sidewalk was as big as it was.
So the sidewalk, you plan to take that up anytime soon, or are you waiting for the hospital to kind of connect with you guys, or what's going on as far as, there's going to be infrastructure there, I'm sure.
Most of the sidewalk in front of the library is going to stay. We're going to replace a stone or 2 here or there.
Yeah.
The sidewalk on the south side of the street from the ambulance barn west to the western extent of the project, that all gets replaced. The hospital put in a new stretch of sidewalk, or Valley-wide put in a new stretch of sidewalk 2 years ago, I believe. That's good. There are places where we're going to very carefully pick the curb and gutter off of the edge of the sidewalk, so we can replace the curb and gutter, but leave the sidewalk. So we'll use the sidewalk as a form for the top back of curb. So there's places where sidewalk's going to get replaced, places where curb and gutter's going to get replaced, and places where both will get replaced.
I see. We're waiting for Comcast to move their lines before we take the old poles down?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. That's looking great out there. I walk that every morning about
thank you.
5:30, 6 o'clock.
It's
looking good.
going to hurt, but it's going to be good when it's
Well,
done.
I think a lot of folks realize that, there's got to be a little pain with this growth issue. Appreciate all the work you do out there, Pat. Thank you very much.
Can I ask or say something?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Councilor Daniel.
Thank you. Similar to what the mayor just ended on, I just wanted to say how much I appreciate the signage, the education, the information, everything that you're doing to make this as painless as possible for people. I know there are going to be snags, I know, but like the not working until 9 o'clock, doing those kinds of things, I've noticed that people are going around, they're learning. That's the way I drive every day. And so I really appreciate the amount of work, energy, and effort just to make sure people know what's going on, not to mention the work that's actually happening on the street. Thank you for all of that, Pat. You're doing a great job letting people know.
Thank you. We're lucky that the contractor's working well with us, keeping us appraised of changes and schedule updates, and we're able to get things out through our social media and everything, and people are learning. It's at 9 o'clock yesterday morning, we were standing there trying to figure out where all the cars were when we were getting ready to close the street. So it is nice. If I know it's inconvenient, but if people can just continue to avoid that area entirely, it helps everybody.
Thank you, Pat. Ms. Heather, and any other staff announcements?
I believe that's it. I think we.
No, I have
sorry.
one. Sorry. I have an announcement on the petitions. So the petitions got turned in to me on Monday, July 10th. She turned in 403 signatures on the medical and 418 on the on the retail. I have finished going through those and verifying the signatures, and they are both insufficient. They both lacked enough verified signatures. So after going through all of them, she had 156 verified on medical and 153 verified on the retail. So she does still have time to provide the remaining amount she needs on each one. Her deadline for that is going to be August 2nd.
Thank you very much for that update, Holly.
And I believe that's 59 and 56 respectively, right? But more signatures that
So
she would need.
she needs 59 and 56.
Right. 56.
Between now and when?
Her deadline will be August 2nd.
August the 2nd?
She has 15 days from the day I let her know.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Holly.
You're
Appreciate that. All right. Well, since there's no local liquor licensing authority actions, we'll move on to council comment. Who has a comment? Councilor Daniel.
I've been speaking a lot, so thank you for bearing with me. I had actually a couple of things. I've been talking to many members of the community, and I spent some time with a cashier at one of our local stores, and she just wanted to do a big shout out to the police department. She actually caught some people stealing from her recently and felt very supported by the police, very supported by the people who came to talk to her, and felt really committed also to our community, even though she doesn't live here. And so she felt like it's absolutely her duty to not let these things happen in our community, and she's not going to stand for it, but she was totally backed up by our police department. So thank you for that, Chief, and your team. That felt really good. And then I also wanted to say we went and appealed to JAG and got the funding back. So thank you for that long. We spoke for 12 minutes and drove for 8 hours. So it was fantastic. And I really am excited that we were able to appeal the decision, get the funding, and make some changes in some of our programming. And then the last thing is that I would really like to officially announce my intention to run for City Council Ward 2 again this fall. I've had the honor to serve our community for 2 years, finishing out Rusty Johnson's seat, so I am up. My term is up this fall. I think everybody has known that. I've worked for these 2 years to really try to represent our community with equity and fairness, and I really hope that the community gives me another chance to continue to represent you and us for City Council for another 4 years. I wish that I'm lucky to do that, and I hope that you feel like I've been representing you well. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Grego.
I had one comment. We've been getting a lot of rain these last, month or so, and the weeds are really bad out there. And I've driven around, and I know that we're going to give some kind of warning because of the rain to start taking care of this stuff, but they're really bad everywhere. So maybe is that something we sent back to the enforcement officer, and I know, like I said, the rain, there's been so much rain out there that these things just took off. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grego. And Councilor Hensley.
I just wanted to say I did go to the CML Executive Board Retreat last week, and it was in North Glen. They did a fantastic job hosting the retreat. I actually got to see areas that I had never seen before. We went to the Wildlife Refuge that's in Commerce City. We had great conversations, great meetings, so it was really neat to be part of that, and some exciting stuff going forward in the next year. So just thought I'd report on that.
Very good. Thank you. And since election season is coming up, I will informally announce my bid for re-election as well. However, Ruth, I will get something to you formally probably tomorrow or the day after. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Any other council comments? Seeing none, I will adjourn this meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. Executive sessions. We have one executive session. We've canceled 2, correct? And we have a need for an executive session. I will entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make the motion that we go into executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6 402 4B to receive legal advice from our city attorney concerning the city's position with respect to stolen funds, misapplied insurance payments that are subject of the charges filed against the former finance director.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, start voting, please. Ms. Hawley?
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll take 5 minutes. After our executive session, we will move back into regular session. No further business will be discussed. Thank you.